Well, we're continuing our coverage here on CNBC TV 18, and we've been bringing you finance ministers, and joining us now is the Finance Minister of Tamil Nadu, Mr. Thiagarajan. Thanks very much, sir, for joining us here to take us through what you make of the budget. At least as far as industry is concerned, the view is that this is a budget that continues the reform process. It is a budget that delivers on a pretty high infrastructure spending, continuing to do the heavy lifting on public spending, and it is a budget that has no nasty surprises, so no harm budget. Your thoughts on what this budget could mean for the economy?
Well, I think I'd agree with the no harm budget part. And I think that there have certainly been some good aspects of this budget. I think first that it was read in English. And so all of us could understand, and the global markets could hear it directly from the finance minister's mouth. I think it also was a bit visionary and focused on new technologies, on battery swaps, on green bonds for more eco-friendly things and jobs related to that, on the MSME relief extension, which we had requested back on December 30th when the state finance ministers met with the union finance minister. So I would say it's a relatively harmless budget, relatively. I mean, there are a couple of things that give me cause for concern. This notion of broadcasting school education as if that's the panacea, when the real problem has been that we've had too much remote education and not enough physical education. And this notion of one nation, one registration, all that, which to me just seems kind of way out there for various reasons. But in some ways, it's a disappointing budget. My Chief Minister, the Honorable Chief Minister, has issued a statement today saying that considering we're coming out of 2 years of economic kind of stress and 3 waves of the pandemic, it has not been as considerate and as pro bottom of the pyramid, or even bottom 2/3 of the country as it should have been. So I think from that perspective, it's been a disappointing budget.
Let me address the issue of states and what the budget has actually attempted to do as far as states are concerned. There is that 1 lakh crore rupee additional assistance that the budget has provided for. Of course, it does come with some caveats attached. There is also that additional borrowing that has been provided for, which states can make use of if they so choose. What do you make of what the budget has done to try and ensure that states also have the ability to spend more and drive growth?
Yeah, let me break that into 2 parts, right? I think the part relating to the deficit limits is a different question, and the part to that 1 lakh crore is a different question. The part relating to the deficit, in the Constitution and in many court judgments, they say that we are 2 equal forms of government. It's not like there's big daddy and little boys, between the union and the states. If that is the case, it reeks of hypocrisy to me that the union government, which shows a 6.9% fiscal deficit this year, projected 6.4% next year, and shows a glide path that doesn't get them back to 4% till 25-26, should impose all kinds of conditions on us and tell us, no, you can only do 3.5%, and you can only do another half if you meet reforms, etc. Why one rule for you and one rule for us? Are you that much more sophisticated, or you get to be big brother? I think these are fundamental questions that, I raised this again on December 30th. I said, first of all, it's not right that you should use this section 263(3) subclause in the Constitution as a way of subverting this intent of equal arms of government, because you hold us in this. It's a complicated technical thing. But they don't use the law. They use this kind of first clean loophole to restrict our borrowing. Otherwise, we can amend our FRA Act and we can borrow. I also said the borrowing limit should be kind of pro-cyclical. That is, when you have a poor economy and the GSDP is low, therefore the denominator is low, but the government spending need is high, you should allow higher limits effectively, automatically, because you know that you can make it back. When the economy is doing well, you could say, well, maybe it's not 3%, it should come out 2.5%. And when the economy is bad, you can say go to 5% because you get this pro-cyclical effect. So for those reasons, I think it could be better. Now, on the 1 lakh crore, I think it's just an accounting trick, because what they've done is taken 1 lakh crore of revenue spending that they used to do in schemes like Smart City, like, other kinds of 50-50 union state or 70-30, 60-40, whatever schemes, which showed as revenue expenditures on the union government's accounts, And we even, sometimes we spent it as revenue, sometimes we spent as capital. Now they shifted it to 50-year interest-free loans. Now, as a finance person, I say there's not that much difference. It's not quite equal 1:1, but there's not that much difference between a 50-year interest-free loan and a grant, because effectively the cost of money, inflation effect, the time value of money and all would make that effectively, pretty much a grant. But it's just an accounting trick. So it makes the union government look more responsible because it doesn't grow the revenue expenses that much. Therefore, the revenue deficit portion of the fiscal deficit comes down. And they look like they're boosting capex in a big way when all they're really doing is accounting for grants and subsidies and schemes into the capital account.
Okay. One of the issues that has been left unaddressed, and perhaps that is going to have to be something that the GST Council, which you are a part of, will have to take up when it meets next, is the issue of the continuation of the compensation cess. And there was no clarity provided in the budget on what happens come July 2022. How much of a concern is that for you as the finance minister of a large state?
Yeah, I've already written or given an interview about this where I made 2 points. I would say because Tamil Nadu is a large, relatively rich state, and because the decay in the previous 7 years of administration was so bad, and because we have confidence that with the guidance and leadership of our Chief Minister and some of the steps that I have put into place as a finance minister and my finance department has been very helpful with, I'm fairly confident that even were the compensation to stop, though it would be a difficult loss of about 15, 18,000 crores for us, we are still a 22, 25 lakh crore economy, and I don't know, about 3.5, 4 lakh crore budget. We'll manage. I mean, it's not great, but it's not the end of the world. But there are many states in this country, including both opposition-run governments, but most importantly, BJP-run governments in places like UP, Bihar, etc., Madhya Pradesh, where they will find it very hard to balance their books. And so, in my opinion, I gave a prediction 2-3 months back. Let's see if it comes true. I said, I don't think the union government would want on its conscience the implications for states if they were to suddenly stop the compensation. So, what we said, I said a reasonable compromise is that we lost 2 years due to the pandemic. And so the compensation should at least continue for 2 years, though many states have pressed for 5 years. We're okay. I mean, as I say, we'll live without it. It'll be tough, but we'll live without it. But I think it's only fair. I mean, we are part of the same country, right? There shouldn't be this kind of paternalistic approach to these things.
Let me address the issue of employment as well as the allocations for marquee schemes like the NREGS. Now, the government at this point in time has given an allocation of about 79,000 crores, saying that they expect that because of the higher capex, there will be an offtake of infrastructure spending, and that will spur employment. And if need arises, if there is demand, well, then more will be provided as far as the NREGS is concerned. Now, this was a specific concern that your Chief Minister had raised as well. But on balance, in terms of being able to provide relief in the current context, as well as do more for jobs, how would you rate the budget?
Not very well, actually. Let me go to the specific and then I'll come to the general. As far as the employment guarantee scheme is concerned, I would have been okay with a gentle tapering, with the expectation that as the economy recovered, this kind of surge in demand that we saw when lockdown happened, when a lot of migrant workers returned to their villages and didn't have anything to do. So there's need for kind of subsistence employment for a lot of people should reduce, but in a tapered way, not in a dramatic way. Of course, the explanation they give validates my point that all they've done is move a bunch of revenue spending into capital and call it as if it's a big 1 lakh crore. And this is a par for the course. This is what they did in 2021, where they moved a bunch of debt from off balance sheet and the subsidiaries onto the balance sheet and made it look like this set up capex. Like this year, where the RE compared to the BE shows a 60, 70, 80,000 crore gap or improvement, but the bulk of that is settling Air India liabilities before transfer to the Tatas. So, this kind of accounting happens all the time, and what they've done is validated that. But if you go back to this broader issue, has there been a focus on employment? Of course, they threw out some numbers like 60 lakh jobs and all that. My concern is for a government that otherwise is so aggressive in launching comprehensive, well-packaged, high advertisement and high value schemes around the things it wants to take control of away from the states, using some backdoor or some centrally sponsored scheme or some direct transfer or something. They have not shown that kind of enthusiasm on the employment front. So relative to the skill and the marketing ability of this government, they have clearly not prioritized employment anywhere relative to the other things they've done, let's say even in the last 7 years.
So let me end then by asking you, I mean, what did you like from the budget? And you said that you do have some specific concerns. What would be your key concerns?
Well, I like the fact, as I said, it was in English. I like the fact it was progressive. It talked about, battery swaps for electric vehicles. I like the fact that, they looked at banking and they looked at green and so forth. My specific concerns are that there is not the kind of attention to execution and detail as there is to the naming and framing of schemes. Every scheme is a PM this and a PM that. Why can't it just be a national scheme? Why can't it just be scheme? Why does everything have to start with the word PM this, PM that, PM that? Does the government not function unless the PM is there? So this kind of focus on publicity value, and let me give you the example. This publicity value stuff, it just boggles my mind on the education front. So they've got this notion where they say they're going to do one class, one TV, e-university something as a way of making up for the fact that education has been school education has been greatly affected by the crisis. It's true. In our revised budget back in 2021, August, at the advice of our global economic advisors, Thiagarajan, Arvind, Esther, Narayan, and John Blaze, we said, we are going to have a remedial program, and we spent time framing it. We tested out a bunch of things. We ran pilot projects, pilot schemes in 12 districts, and we discovered that the way we do this is we get educated youngsters from their communities. We ask them to use the community hall or the empty class or some village, property like the office. And we do integration of bringing these people back into the social construct of education for cultural events, for help with homework, for just hanging out, for playing, to bring back people into the joy of having, how you and I experience school and college and so forth. That is the component that was lost during crisis, right? There's only so much you can teach through a TV screen or a phone screen or whatever. Yeah. So the solution to the educational loss of 2 years of remote learning is physical learning. It is not more electronic learning. Yeah. I don't understand how you remediate the lack of physical education and interaction and social skill development and the camaraderie by doing more TV and more kind of e-university. So some of this, sometimes I wonder that if it's catchy and hypey, of course, there's a sinister possibility that they want to send kind of a saffron education through the TV to places where, according to the Constitution, school education is a state subject. So there could be a sinister motive, but as we know, remote education never works anyway. That's what we learned in 2 years. It's deeply flawed. So my worry is that at best they waste the money, at worst.
Right. Mr. Thiagarajan, we will leave it for today, but of course, there's plenty more to talk about, especially on the GST front. I will check in with you as we get closer to the next council meeting. But for today, thanks very much for joining us and taking us through what you make of the budget and its impact on the economy. Appreciate your time. We will take a break. There's a lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere. We're back in a moment with more on CNBC TV 18.